So 3 years ago, I found out about all my husband's infidelity. I found out about his severe porn addiction with all the porn on his phone, talking to OF girls, saved videos, messaging back and forth with different women porn addicts and sharing that online. And to say shocked, that would be an understatement the way that I felt at that time. It was like a semi-bus hit my life. And I had been in therapy for 3 years. So this, I felt like at the time that I was foolish. Like, where were the red flags? Where had I missed things? And there were so many things that I had missed along the way. But when I had my discovery day, I actually told him to leave. I did tell him to leave while I contemplated and I decided what I wanted to do from this point out. I was very firm. I did not beg. I did cry and grieve, but I did not cry for him to come home. And during those 5 days with me and my children, I just really sought it was that I wanted going forward. I didn't think that there was hope. I was already contacting a divorce attorney. I was done because at this point, how could you save a marriage that had gone to this level and this extent? How was a relationship like this even salvageable? And this is somebody that I had been with since I was, we got married when I was 21. We had 3 beautiful children together. And the only way I can describe it is that we had a wonderful, beautiful life. We had done family vacations together. We had beautiful memories. And we had even had a wonderful summer. But it just felt like all of a sudden, I didn't know who I was married to. I didn't know what reality I was living in. I was spiraling. I was crushed. I was heartbroken. I was in such tremendous pain. And during those 5 days, I did pray about it. That was something that I personally did because my faith is very important to me. I sought counsel. I talked to my therapist. And there's not a whole lot of information out there when it comes to content on people who chose to stay and made it. And that really, really discouraged me because I was like, there's probably no hope of this marriage being saved. So many people out there say things like cheaters, they always cheat, they never change, you're never going to be able to save your marriage, all these different things. So long story short, I did decide to give him a second chance. I worked very, very hard while we were separated on what boundaries that I was going to set. I worked on that with my therapist. And the boundaries were very firm in what I expected for changed behavior if he were to return. I realized he was an addict. I realized that he had been gaslighting me and doing all the abusive things. But he was asking for a second chance. It wasn't like I was begging him for that. He was the one begging. And in fact, in my story, my personal story, I didn't really need him for much at the time. I was making 6 figures. I could support my kids and I alone without his financial contribution. I was self-sufficient. So I didn't really need him. And I knew that. I at that point was like, I don't really need you. Which is different in my story. And I was ready for the divorce. I was like, let's do this. But there was just something holding me back, that there was something here worth fighting for and that something could be saved. I believe that was God speaking to me in my heart because at the time, nobody else was giving me that hope. We ended up going on a marriage retreat for a week. That was one of the boundaries that I set. My friend had told me about it and said that there was a 95% chance in saving your marriage if you went to this retreat. That was their success rate, and we went there, and it was life-changing. It opened my eyes to a perspective I had not seen before, and it was incredible talking to other women and seeing other couples share their testimonies, talking to other women who they had experienced similar situations, not to the extent of the porn addiction, but they had similar situations in that their husbands had cheated, and today their marriages were not only okay, their marriages were better than they were before. The trust had been rebuilt and restored. Their intimacy was greater. And all these women said the same thing to me, that the infidelity actually would be the best thing that ever happened to my marriage because it would put us on this course to healing and repairing our marriage. And at the time I was triggered by it. I didn't want to hear it. But wow, were they right? Because even today, when we're working with couples, I can see so many people out there that are resistant to therapy, that are resistant to getting help, that are resistant to going deep into the core layers of their childhood trauma. or their coping mechanisms or the toxic habits that they have, the way that they communicate with other people or their partners. They're so unwilling and resistant to change those things. And so I see now when I'm in public, now my eyes just have a different perspective. It's like, wow, that's something that you could just tweak right there and connect further together versus repelling in your marriage, and having more avoidance. That's a way, that was an opportunity there for you both to connect, but that was not the choice that was made in that moment. And the truth of the matter is that we all come into marriage hurting. We all do. We all have childhood trauma. We all have bad coping mechanisms. We all have bad tools. Most of us don't know how to communicate, if communicate at all. And definitely most of us do not know how to listen. So when we get into marriage, we think that we have all the tools necessary to make a marriage work, but because we are broken people with bad habits, we end up hurting our spouse and they end up hurting us. And so how do we navigate those situations? How are we communicating through those situations? The level of maturity that has helped both my husband and I grow through this experience has been tremendous. Our intimacy has never been better. Our communication has never been better. It's always a work in progress, but it's never been better. And am I saying we're perfect? Absolutely not. We are always a work in progress. That's what marriage is. It's work, but it is work worth doing. So long story short, after that marriage retreat, we ended up going into therapy. He ended up working on his addictions, and all the reasons why he had fallen into those addictions. Most of these men are falling into corn addiction at the ages as early as 6 or 8 years old because it's prevalent in their homes, or they have emotionally avoidant or abusive parents. And so where do they go with that? And before you hit me with, well, why are we making excuses for men? I'm not. A lot of women actually do this too. And a lot of women, hearts are broken. And so they're constantly seeking validation and reassurance from other men. And unfortunately, these are the women that you see who are usually sleeping with other married men, who are trying to seduce married men, who don't see a problem with it. Women who are selling their bodies online because they think that that is the extent of their self-worth and where they're going to get validation and love from. So women do this too. Men do this, and it really truly is a decision that is being made as a pain coping mechanism. I love what Dr. Kathy Nickerson talks about, how affairs are a painkiller, and I would say corn is the same thing. It is a painkiller. People using other people to fulfill fantasies, to fulfill lust, to fulfill a band-aid to a broken problem. But what is tremendous and why I share my story is because I wish somebody had shared a story like this 3 years ago when I really took a leap of faith to see what would change. I did not just take him back and just expect things to go back to the way we were. I knew that if I chose to say we were going to go on a new course to build something new, a new marriage, a new way of communicating, a new way of having intimacy, a new way of being honest, a new way of healing. And I can honestly say today that it was the best decision that I made, and it was the right decision for me. Is it the right decision for everyone? No, because people have different variables, but it was the right decision for me. And I am so excited to become a marriage counselor because a lot of people believe what the media, believe what social media, believe what movies, believe what music teaches us. And unfortunately, because we don't have access to testimonies like mine, because people can't share them due to work or friends or family, I get it. We don't see a lot of hope in these situations. Where we do see hope is when we're working with therapists, when we're working at marriage retreats, when we're working with coaches who do this for a living, and these people have PhDs, these people are doctors and psychologists and therapists, licensed therapists. These people see that there's hope on the other side, and I am so grateful that I listened to those people and not my inner bubble at the time who told me that there was no hope.